Imagine a morning when the familiar world around you seems like a distorted reflection. A glance in the mirror reveals a stranger, and attempts to recall cherished names result in a frightening blank. Even the simple desire to call a loved one suddenly loses meaning, leaving only an unsettling sense of disorientation. This state, capable of shaking the very foundation of your identity, can affect anyone. Contrary to popular belief, aging isn't just about wrinkles and grey hair. True aging begins much earlier, manifesting as a gradual loss of mental clarity and a weakening of cognitive functions. Surprisingly, many people, without realizing it, make daily mistakes that accelerate this process, subtly eroding their intellect, memory, and sharpness of thought. However, there's no need to despair, as there are ways to counteract this. Below, we will present 5 scientifically proven rules, adherence to which will help you maintain mental clarity, sharpness of thought, and a strong memory for many years to come. Many neglect these principles due to ignorance or underestimation, but they are precisely what differentiate those who retain mental agility from those who gradually lose touch with themselves and the world around them. If you aspire to a long and fulfilling life, preserving clarity of thought until your final days, pay close attention to these rules. So, let's begin our journey into the world of a healthy mind, keeping in mind that the most crucial rule will be revealed at the end. Once, this person was a paragon of intellectual prowess. Their judgments were sharp, their analysis profound, and their memory admirable. But now, sitting in a chair, they feel only confusion. Words treacherously slip away mid-sentence, and the thread of conversation is constantly lost. They are perplexed. Why is their memory fading, their thoughts becoming chaotic, and why have they turned into a slow and scattered individual? The issue here is not merely age, but the tragic consequences of what they fed their brain daily. We meticulously monitor our diet, carefully choosing foods, counting calories, and ensuring vitamin balance. However, almost no one considers what our brain feeds on, this vital organ that, like a sponge, absorbs everything it's offered. And what it receives are streams of news full of anxiety and fear, endless complaints from others, aggression and scandals flooding the media space, negative conversations, and gossip. All this informational junk, like poison, slowly but surely contaminates the mind, undermining the very foundations of intelligence. Numerous scientific studies convincingly demonstrate that systematic and daily immersion in a deluge of negative information has a destructive impact on human cognitive functions. As a result of the relentless onslaught of grim news, a persistent sense of anxiety develops, the ability to memorize deteriorates, the thought process becomes chaotic and muddled, and making well-considered decisions turns into an insurmountable task. The greatest danger is the phenomenon of the brain habituating to negativity. Similar to drug addiction, the brain begins to demand more and more doses of grim news and the accompanying negative emotions. Ultimately, the mind loses the ability to notice positive aspects of life. The world appears in shades of grey. The future seems bleak, and existence feels meaningless. However, there is an effective way to break the vicious cycle of negative dependence. It is necessary to learn to control the flow of information, consciously shielding oneself from toxic content and limiting interaction with people prone to constant complaints and criticism. One should purposefully switch to positive, inspiring, and enriching materials. Memory, thinking, and mental clarity directly depend on what a person fills their mind with. But even if one manages to protect themselves from external negativity, there is another, more insidious trap that most people fall into, and it has an even more destructive impact on the brain. The second crucial rule for brain health relates to emotional traps, which, like a silent killer, erode its resources and accelerate aging processes. Have you ever considered how fleeting and elusive positive moments are in our memory? Joyful encounters, sincere compliments, happy events, all seem to dissolve in the turbulent waters of time, leaving only a faint trace. Conversely, negative experiences possess astonishing tenacity. A single careless word, an accidental conflict, or an unjust accusation can linger in our minds for a long time, forcing us to revisit them repeatedly, like a nagging tune. By mentally replaying these moments, we re-experience the pain, resentment, anger, or disappointment, as if they had just happened. The most regrettable and destructive aspect is that each such memory activates the same neural circuits in the brain that were engaged at the moment of the actual event. In other words, the brain makes no distinction between reality and memory, and you re-experience the very same negative emotions. Imagine having not just dozens, but hundreds or even thousands of such negative memories. What then happens to your consciousness? It becomes overwhelmed with negativity, like a dark, thick paint that distorts your perception of the world and makes you see everything in a grim light. Reality appears before you in a distorted form, devoid of color and hope. It's an undeniable scientific fact. Negative experiences are like poison for the brain. They trigger prolonged stress, which, like fire, burns out neural pathways, simultaneously spiking cortisol levels, a hormone known for its ability to destroy memory and impair cognitive abilities. Over time, this leads to absent-mindedness, forgetfulness, and a loss of mental clarity, the ability to concentrate and effectively solve problems. But even more alarmingly, such changes can transform one's very personality. People mired in past grievances become prone to irritability, withdraw into themselves, lose interest in the world around them, and abandon hope for the future. They seem to reject the present, preferring to remain captive to past disappointments. However, there is a way out. Upon noticing that the mind is returning to painful memories, it is necessary to immediately stop this process. It's important to consciously shift attention from destructive thoughts to active endeavors. For instance, one can create a daily plan, engage in a favorite activity that requires focus, or talk to a loved one about something pleasant and inspiring. Each time a person chooses to move forward rather than dwell in the past, their brain becomes stronger and their consciousness freer. But even this is not enough for complete mental protection, as there's yet another factor that can significantly shorten its lifespan. The third rule, often overlooked, is key to preserving mental sharpness. Imagine two people who have reached the age of 70. One impresses others with their perceptiveness, easily masters the latest technological innovations, shows an insatiable interest in the world around them, effortlessly remembers important information, and happily participates in intellectual conversations. The other struggles with dates, forgets the names of even close relatives, has difficulty recalling their morning meal, and has lost all interest in learning new things. What is the fundamental difference between them? It's not genetic predisposition or happy coincidence, but rather that one constantly sought knowledge and self-improvement, while the other ceased their intellectual development. Our brain is a complex and unique organ, much like a muscle, requiring regular training. Without proper stimulation, it undergoes atrophy, similar to a body deprived of movement. This is not just a figure of speech, but a scientifically proven fact. Numerous studies indicate that people who stop learning and acquiring new skills after the age of 50 are 5 times more likely to face dementia and significant memory impairment compared to those who continue to actively learn. However, the most alarming consequence of neglecting intellectual activity is the gradual destruction of neural networks painstakingly formed over many years. A person seemingly loses a part of themselves, forfeiting their unique abilities to analyze information, critically assess reality, and generate creative ideas. This state leads to reduced effectiveness in solving complex problems, hinders the emergence of innovative thoughts, and even the most mundane actions become a source of fatigue and difficulty. Fortunately, there is an effective way to prevent such degradation. The most powerful and accessible tool for maintaining brain youth is an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and a desire to master new things. Immersing oneself in uncharted territories, acquiring new skills, constantly expanding the volume of memorized information, and engaging in unfamiliar activities have a beneficial effect on the brain, preventing its aging and stimulating the formation of new neural connections. Even simple regular reading, studying a foreign language, playing a musical instrument, or solving puzzles contribute to maintaining brain activity and protecting it from degradation. However, despite the importance of continuous learning, there is another critically important factor, without which it is impossible to maintain mental clarity. Its absence has such a destructive impact that it virtually annihilates intelligence. The fourth rule for brain longevity: the power of habit in movement. Imagine 2 scenarios. On one side, a 70-year-old person full of energy, with a sparkling sense of humor, easily absorbing new information, and tireless traveler enjoying every moment of life. On the other, their peer, struggling to perceive the world around them, forgetting simple words, having lost interest in life, and immersed in apathy. What is the invisible boundary separating these 2 scenarios of old age? The answer is simple, yet striking in its significance. One cultivated a habit of movement throughout their life, while the other neglected physical activity. Modern science irrefutably proves an unbreakable link between movement and brain health. When a person leads a sedentary lifestyle, their brain begins to experience oxygen deprivation. The circulatory system works less efficiently, which in turn leads to a slowing of thought processes, reduced concentration, and impaired memory. But most alarmingly, a lack of physical activity provokes accelerated brain aging, shortening the period of its full functionality. Researchers from Harvard University have established that people who ignore regular physical exercise lose up to 10% of their cognitive abilities earlier than their more active peers. Take a moment to consider how much of your day you dedicate to physical activity. There's no need to become a world-class athlete to benefit your brain. Just half an hour of brisk walking, regular outdoor excursions, simple physical exercises, or dance movements can significantly improve your memory enhance your ability to concentrate, and reduce the likelihood of developing dementia and other neurodegenerative diseases. Ordinary movement is a powerful impulse for brain function. But there is one more decisive factor that cannot be overlooked. Even if you consciously avoid negative emotions, regularly train your mind, and maintain an active lifestyle, all these efforts may prove insufficient if you do not adhere to one extremely important principle. Principle number 5, the secret to eternal youth of the mind. Observe people who have passed the century mark. Many of them remain active, vibrant in spirit, overflowing with ideas, and show a genuine interest in life and the world around them, even in advanced age. They don't just maintain mental clarity. Their intellectual abilities continue to develop, and their rich life experience becomes a source of inspiration for others. What then is their main secret? The answer lies in their ability to focus their attention. The human brain is like a compass, constantly pointing in the direction determined by its focus of attention. When the mind is perpetually immersed in thoughts of difficulties, fears, and negative aspects, it attunes itself to a pessimistic perception of reality, which leads to a narrowing of horizons and limited prospects. In such circumstances, individuals tend to see obstacles even where none exist, and miss favorable opportunities that pass them by. However, if a person consciously directs their attention towards acquiring knowledge, personal growth, creative endeavors, seeking innovative solutions, and generating fresh ideas, their thinking transforms, becoming more powerful, insightful, and creative. Such a mind is capable of finding solutions to situations that others perceive as dead ends. Scientific research indicates that people who purposefully control their attention and carefully select their informational and social environment are 40% less likely to experience memory deterioration and cognitive impairments in old age. An exceptionally important factor is how the day begins. If the morning is filled with anxiety, dwelling on problems, and aimlessly scrolling through news feeds or social media, the brain immediately tunes into a chaotic state, absent-mindedness, and negativity, which dictates the rest of the day. Conversely, if one sets the right vector from the very morning by asking themselves, "What do I want to do today? What do I want to learn? What inspires me and fills me with energy?" then the mind will become sharper each day, and life will be filled with profound meaning and satisfaction. Before each person lies a dilemma: either passively observe as relentless time and harmful habits gradually erode their intellectual abilities, or take the destiny of their mind into their own hands and cultivate mental clarity for many years, enjoying every moment of a rich life. However, a natural question arises. Is the reader ready to implement these 5 fundamental principles, or will they vanish from memory without a trace, like a fleetingly read article? After all, the human mind is the most valuable asset one possesses. Material possessions can be regained, physical form can be restored, but the fading of the mind is an almost irreversible process. At this moment, the reader possesses knowledge, 5 key rules capable of preserving mental clarity into old age have been revealed to them. But knowledge not supported by action remains merely useless information. Only those who consistently apply these principles in their daily lives experience real change. Concrete actions will be the confirmation of one's desire to preserve mental sharpness and strength. The future begins today, so let it be clear, conscious, and wise.